Imagine a universe that never forgets. A system so precise it stores every intention, every whisper, every trap laid for you, only to return it when the timing cuts deepest. That's not coincidence. That's cosmic balance. And in that balance, anyone who throws thorns in your path eventually trips on them. That's the law. See, the people who secretly hoped you'd fall, the ones who watched you like a hawk waiting for a crack, they didn't just want to see you break. They needed it. Your light exposes everything they're trying to hide, so they tried to dim it, quietly, strategically, manipulatively. But here's the twist. Every move they made against you became the blueprint of your rise. They were so focused on stopping you, they didn't see the universe rewriting the rules in your favor. They dug traps, but you learned how to fly. They used your name as a curse, but life turned it into a prophecy. You became everything they feared without even trying. And now, they're haunted, not just by your progress, but by the realization that nothing they did could stop what was meant to unfold. You are walking karma, a reminder that energy never dies, it just returns home. And this, chosen ones, is only the beginning. The road ahead, it's wide open. And every step you take will echo in the minds of those who doubted you. So if you're ready to see what unstoppable really looks like the video, subscribe to the channel, and step into the version of yourself they swore would never exist. This isn't just a coincidence, it's confirmation. Only the chosen ones get targeted this hard, doubted this much, and rise this powerfully. Others won't get it, but you will, so stay with me till the end, because what's coming next is exactly what they said you'd never become. Number 1. Stop playing the soft role they wrote for you. Break their script before it breaks you. They expected a fairy tale, but you showed up as the plot twist. They thought you were the soft one, the easy win, the quiet supporter in their self-centered storyline, the kind who nods, stays silent, smooths tension, and sacrifices your truth just to keep the peace. They didn't love you, they loved your silence. They loved your agreeableness. They loved that you made them look bigger by shrinking yourself. But what they didn't realize? That harmless version of you was just the shell. The real you, the fire was always underneath. And now, the mask is off. You stopped playing their background character. You stopped dimming just to fit inside a fragile world built by people who can't handle power unless they're the only ones holding it. You stopped whispering your truth just to keep someone else from breaking down, and that's the problem. They were never scared of your softness. They were terrified of what would happen if you ever decided to stop being soft. Now here you are, no filter, no leash, no more rehearsing the role they assigned to you. You're speaking without apologizing, saying no without guilt, walking away without writing a novel to explain it. You're not palatable anymore, and it's shaking them. Because their power only worked when you needed their approval. You don't. Not anymore. You've peeled off the layers they were comfortable with, and now they're face to face with the version of you they prayed would never awaken. Not because you're cruel, but because you're clear. You're no longer available for manipulation, disguised as peace. They called it kindness when you swallowed your voice. They called it grace when you let them overstep. But none of that was softness. It was your warning shot. Your last polite gesture before evolution. They missed it, they misread you, and now they're confused. Why the same person who used to hold everything in is now letting it all out. Unfiltered, undeniable, unafraid. And here's the part they'll never admit. They don't miss you. They miss the version of you that made them feel powerful. But that version? She's extinct. You're not here to play small anymore. You're here to shift the room. You're here to rattle cages, break false peace, and make people feel what they forced you to suppress. And if they feel exposed, tense, or uncomfortable, good. That's what happens when the truth walks in, wearing your face. Let them adjust to the new you, or let them leave. Either way, you're not shrinking back, not now, not ever. Number 2, quit shrinking to fit their comfort. Take up space before they erase you. You were never too much, they were just too small to handle you. From the start, they told you to dim it down. Be softer, be quieter. Don't outshine, don't intimidate. You were conditioned to shrink, not because it was right, but because your full presence made them feel exposed. You were told that your boldness was offensive, your confidence too loud, and your ambition too threatening. But here's what they never told you. Your existence was never meant to be an apology. They fed you the lie that playing small was polite, that being agreeable was safe, that staying in the background was the way to be loved. But all that did was bury the real you under layers of fake smiles and filtered opinions. And now that you've stopped performing, they're rattled. You've reclaimed your volume, your presence, your space, and they're whispering about it like it's a scandal. But the only scandal is how long you were told to silence your own truth just to keep the peace. Taking up space isn't arrogance, it's alignment. It's walking into a room and not waiting for approval to belong there. It's speaking even when your voice trembles. It's saying no without a justification and yes without hesitation. It's existing fully without checking if your shine offends someone stuck in their own shadows. The moment you stopped waiting for permission, the masks fell. They didn't say, "You've changed," because you did something wrong. They said it because you finally became undeniable. And your presence, the real, unfiltered, powerful one, reminds them of everything they didn't become. You're not too confident. You're just no longer insecure. You're not too loud. You're just no longer silent. You're not too much. You're finally whole. Let them say what they want. You don't need their validation to take what was already yours. Your light doesn't make them small. Their refusal to rise does. You're not invading their space. You just stopped leaving your own empty. And the truth is, you were never invisible. You were just waiting for the right moment to stop hiding. That moment is now. Number 3, don't let their calm fool you. Be the storm that ends their control. They expected a breeze, but you came back as a thunderclap. They thought you were gentle background noise, easy to overlook, safe to ignore. You carried peace, not because you lacked power, but because you mastered it. But they mistook your control for softness. They assumed your grace under pressure meant you had no pressure of your own. They saw the calm and missed the current underneath. They never understood. You weren't suppressing your power, you were choosing not to unleash it until now. Now the storm has arrived. And you are that storm. You've stopped cushioning your words for people who only hear what flatters them. You're done accepting disrespect dressed up as sarcasm and betrayal hidden in fake smiles. You don't let things slide. You don't give endless chances. You used to let things go, for peace, for love, for connection. But now you understand. Peace isn't the absence of conflict, it's the absence of chaos. And these people, they were the chaos. You're not being mean, you're being surgical. You don't yell, you correct. You don't explain, you act. They don't know how to handle it, because they still think the version of you that forgave without change, stayed silent through pain, and smiled through the mess still exists. That version has been deactivated. Now they're stunned, because they poked the quiet and got the eruption. They challenged your stillness and got the quake. They thought you were just light. Turns out, you were the voltage. Chosen ones move like that. You watch, you observe, you let them show who they are. Then, when it's time, you show who you are. They never saw you coming, because they never believed you could. Now, they're walking on eggshells in a house they built to break you. Let them scramble, let them whisper, let them flinch every time your name comes up, because you're not here to maintain their illusions. You're here to make them face reality. You're not angry. You're aligned. You're not dangerous. You're done pretending. You're not. The storm didn't ruin anything. It cleared the air, and now the forecast is simple. You're the pressure they can't prepare for, and the peace they'll never manipulate again. Number 4, stop explaining your silence. Let them fear what they can't read. They mistook your silence for surrender, but what you were doing was sharpening your blade in plain sight. Let them laugh while you say nothing. Let them interpret your stillness as weakness. That's how amateurs think. They don't understand that silence isn't absence, it's strategy. While they were talking loud to mask insecurity, you were scanning the room like a master tactician. You weren't retreating, you were positioning, observing, plotting. And now, when the dust starts to rise, guess who's still standing, without saying a word? Your silence isn't empty, it's loaded. It carries weight they'll never measure. You're not the kind who performs for attention. You don't beg to be heard. You earn the power to speak by choosing not to waste your words on people who don't listen to understand. You're not unreachable. You're selective. Your voice has value, and that scares them, because when you stop talking, they don't know where you stand. And that mystery, that's the weapon they can't defend against. They don't know what's coming, and that's exactly the point. While they post their every move like chess amateurs announcing checkmate, you're 5 turns ahead, already sealing the game. You see what others miss, the cracks behind the fake smiles, the intentions behind the compliments, the betrayal hiding in casual words. They thought you weren't paying attention because you weren't reacting, but you were storing data. And when you finally moved, it wasn't emotional, it was surgical. The chosen ones were never meant to be loud. Your presence alone creates disruption. That's why they try to provoke you into noise. Because in your silence, they lose control. In your quiet, they hear their own guilt louder. Your calmness feels like a mirror, and they can't look too long without exposing what they tried to hide. Number 5. Refuse the hero mask. Being the villain might be your real freedom. They wanted a sweetheart, but what they got was a storm with boundaries. You're not afraid to be the villain in a story that was never written in your favor. You stopped chasing applause the moment you realized they only clapped when you were bending, bleeding, or betraying yourself for their comfort. That's not peace, that's quiet control. And you're done. They wanted you to be digestible, predictable, soft, the agreeable one who swallowed pain and smiled through disrespect. But the truth is, you were never built for background roles. You were just playing along until the script started suffocating your soul. Now, they're calling you cold because you cut ties with chaos. They're calling you toxic because you told the truth. They're calling you too much because you finally made yourself enough. The truth was, you were not calling you cold because people love the idea of a hero, but only when the hero makes them feel safe. You, on the other hand, shattered that illusion. You made decisions that weren't easy, walked away from people who looked good on the outside but were draining you dry from the inside. You said no, and you meant it. You drew a line and dared them to cross it. That's not cruelty, that's clarity, and clarity makes cowards uncomfortable. You stopped trying to be the savior in someone else's messy narrative. You stopped sacrificing your sanity just to keep the peace, and let's be real. The moment you stopped shrinking, they called it attitude. The moment you demanded better, they labeled it ego. But you saw through it all. Their labels don't define you. Their stories don't confine you. You're not the villain, they just lost the power to write your role. You're not bitter, you're just boundaried. You're not cold, you're just clear. And if they want to play victim to your evolution, let them. You didn't come to be loved, you came to be free. And freedom, it never asks for permission. Number 6, don't absorb their projections. You're a mirror, not their punching bag. You walk in and something shifts, not because you said anything, not because you did anything, just your presence, raw, aware, unapologetic, makes the air feel heavier to those still living behind masks. That's the power of being chosen. You don't have to lift a finger to challenge people, you just have to exist, because what you carry can't be copied, and what you reflect can't be ignored. You are a mirror, and not just any mirror. You're the one that shows them what they've buried, forgotten, or refused to heal. You trigger them without trying, because when they see you walking confidently in your skin, they remember all the times they didn't. When they see you owning your scars, they remember all the ones they've covered with fake smiles and shallow praise. They can't name it, but they feel it. A tightness in the chest, a sudden irritation, an urge to gossip. That's not dislike, that's discomfort. Because you're holding up a reflection of the life they could have had if only they'd done the work you did. You chose the hard path. You faced your mess while they found excuses. You chose truth over fitting in. And now, just being in your energy makes them squirm. They'll say you're too much, full of yourself, intense. But what they really mean is, you remind me I've settled. Your authenticity stings, not because it's loud, but because it's real. And realness, it exposes everything false around it. You didn't come to be accepted, you came to awaken. And awakening always offends those still asleep. So let them mislabel you, twist your story, distance themselves, because it's just too much. That's their way of avoiding the truth you reflect. But deep down they know, it's not you, it's what you represent. A version of them they never had the courage to become. Number 7, don't apologize for outgrowing them. Your growth will offend those who stay stuck. Your growth wasn't in their script. It was a glitch in their control system. They were okay with your progress as long as it stayed small, predictable, convenient. As long as it didn't challenge the role they cast you in. As long as it didn't make them question who they were next to you. They applauded your healing when it looked like a quiet recovery, but they never expected a transformation. They weren't ready for the version of you that walks like thunder and speaks like truth wrapped in steel. Now you're sharp, now you're awake, and now you're untouchable. That's what's got them shook. Because you outgrew the box they tried to keep you in. The one labeled harmless, humble, less than. But growth like yours doesn't ask for permission. It kicks the door off the hinges. You no longer move through their world for acceptance. You move through it like a force. You don't fit their narrative anymore, and that's where their panic begins. You were supposed to stay sweet, soft, manageable, someone they could advise, pity, or outrun. But instead, you've become the version of yourself they never had the courage to face in themselves. And now your presence alone exposes their stagnation. You're living proof of what happens when someone stops asking for permission and starts owning their power. That kind of energy, it rattles people who are still hiding behind excuses and old identities. You stopped dancing around their comfort zones. You stopped over-explaining, over-apologizing, over-caring. And with that silence came the shift. The guilt tactics no longer work. The passive digs fall flat. The manipulation has expired. Because the version of you they had access to doesn't live here anymore. They rooted for your glow-up as long as it didn't outshine their shadow. But now, you're walking in rooms their ego can't enter. You're resonating on frequencies their insecurities can't survive. And instead of rising with you, they resent the mirror you hold up just by existing. Number 8, stop giving them the answers. You're the test they'll keep failing. They thought they had you figured out. Same tricks, same pressure, same outcome. Push the right buttons, pull the right strings, and you'd fold like before, right? Maybe you'd over-explain. Maybe you'd silence yourself just to keep the peace. Maybe you'd beg for understanding while they smugly watched. That was the plan. They didn't just expect your softness, they counted on it. But what they got this time wasn't the version they rehearsed for. They walked into the test unprepared, and now they're failing, loudly. You see, chosen ones don't announce the upgrade. You change the whole equation and let them show up with outdated answers. They brought old games to a brand new battlefield, and now they're scrambling, because what used to work doesn't even get a reaction anymore. You don't entertain the nonsense. You don't justify your peace. You don't give away your energy like it's a free sample. You're strategic now, silent where they want chaos, boundaried where they expect submission, detached where they crave control. And that shift? It's brutal for them, because control only works when you care what they think. But you don't. Not anymore. You're not reacting from emotion. You're responding from awareness. You're no longer dancing to their tempo. You're building in silence, moving in purpose. They tried to bait you, but you let them sink their own ship. Now they're realizing they've been tested, and they're the ones coming up short. Because this version of you, it's not predictable. It's not programmable. It's not looking to pass their test. It is the test, and it's built with trick questions they weren't smart enough to expect. You've flipped the dynamic. They're no longer the one watching you. You're the one silently watching them crumble. Let them be confused. Let them fumble through every failed attempt to get under your skin. Let them realize, too late, that you're not even playing the same game anymore. You left their board, and now you're operating in a space where their rules don't apply. Number 9. Let go of people-pleasing. You weren't born to be their puppet. You were never meant to play the puppet in their theater of control. But for a while, you did. You adjusted your tone, you filtered your truth. You became smaller, quieter, easier, just to be accepted. You overthought every move, hoping to avoid disapproval, and even then, they picked you apart. You were too much when you showed emotion, too cold when you pulled back, too loud when you spoke, too distant when you went quiet. It was never about you. It was about them, keeping you moldable, predictable, dependent. But that version of you, dead and buried. The moment you stopped performing for applause and started choosing peace over popularity, the entire game shifted. You reclaimed your energy, and the silence that followed spoke volumes. Suddenly, they weren't sure where they stood. Not because you changed for attention, but because you finally stopped needing it. That's what scares them. You've become the kind of person who doesn't chase clarity, doesn't beg for closure, and doesn't need validation to breathe. You move for yourself now. You wear what empowers you. You speak only when the truth demands it. You no longer dilute your voice to keep the insecure comfortable. And that disruption, that rattling in their spirit, that's the sound of your freedom echoing through their control system. They say you've changed, and they're absolutely right. You've stopped being a mirror for their insecurities. You've stopped accepting roles you never auditioned for. And most of all, you've stopped giving unearned access to your loyalty, your time, and your softness. You don't explain your no. You don't justify your distance. You don't apologize for walking away from manipulation dressed as love. And now, your independence is loud, even in silence. It haunts them, because you've become what they secretly wish they could be: unshakable, unbothered, and real. You're not here to keep people comfortable in their performance. You're here to be raw, to be whole, to be you. Number 10. Quit handing out loyalty like discounts. Make them earn what they took for granted. Your loyalty used to be automatic. A silent vow you gave without question. You handed it out like oxygen, thinking it was just what good people do. You stayed solid for people who were shaky. You defended those who never showed up for you. You gave when they only took. And the sickest part? They never saw it as loyalty. They saw it as access. You were dependable, predictable, easy to use. But chosen ones eventually wake up. And when you did, it hit them like a system shutdown. Because suddenly, the most reliable one in their corner went ghost. You see, loyalty isn't about being the last one standing after disrespect. It's about energy exchange, mutual respect, shared weight. But they got it twisted. They thought because you were always there, you always would be. They confused your endurance with permission. They expected you to be loyal to their chaos, their neglect, their excuses. But now you've made it clear, your loyalty is earned, not assumed. It's not handed out like party favors at a pity celebration. It's a high-value currency, and they no longer qualify. They're shook because you no longer show up when it's convenient for them. You're not available on demand. Your energy has been reallocated to yourself, to your purpose, to your peace. And that silence they hear, that absence, that's the invoice for everything they took for granted. They thought your love was unconditional. Turns out it had boundaries, ones they never saw coming. This shift isn't bitterness, it's balance. It's not about punishing them, it's about protecting you. You've stopped bleeding for people who wouldn't even hand you a bandage. You've stopped giving your loyalty to people who only clapped for you when it benefited them. Now they're watching from the outside, realizing the access they had wasn't a birthright, it was a privilege. Number 11. Don't join their power games. Win by not playing at all. You didn't just walk away from the game, they didn't even notice you flipped the whole board and built your own arena. While they're still trading smiles for power and secrets for leverage, you're somewhere else, living in real peace. Not the fragile kind that depends on status or schemes. They had a system, they had a hierarchy, unspoken rules passed down like old weapons. Laugh at what's fake, agree with what's hollow, bend just enough to be tolerated. You played along for a while. You wore the mask, not because it fit, but because you were observing, studying. But chosen ones don't stay players, they become game changers. You woke up. You saw that all their little moves, the alliances, the backhanded compliments, the strategic friendships, weren't strength. They were desperation disguised as power, and you didn't need to win their game because you never needed to play it. They climbed fake ladders to nowhere. You built your own elevation in silence. While they tried to manipulate attention, you mastered detachment. While they fought for a seat at the table, you created a table they can't even find. Now they're confused. They don't know how to control someone who doesn't seek their applause. You don't flinch when they withhold validation. You don't chase recognition. And that's what makes you dangerous. You don't move for claps. You move with clarity. You don't compete, you create. And when someone can't be baited, bribed, or boxed in, they become unpredictable. That's you. That's what's got them shook. They thought they had you figured out, the obedient one, the agreeable one, the always smiling, always nodding character in their performance. But the moment you stepped off that stage, they lost their script. You took the game they built around ego and turned it into dust. You're not chasing trophies, you are the reward. And what they can't understand, they label as arrogance. But it's not arrogance. It's freedom, it's power, it's truth. Number 12. Stop letting cheap words buy you. Your integrity is priceless. Keep it that way. You're the one who shattered the price tag illusion. Because you can't be bought, borrowed, bribed, or broken. In a world where everything seems for sale, loyalty, values, attention, even love, you show up like a glitch in the system, a threat to the entire machine. People don't know what to do with someone who doesn't respond to bait. They've built their lives on transactions, trained to believe that everyone has a price, if not in dollars, then in compliments, flattery, or social clout. But you watched the whole circus and walked straight past the tent. They tried the usual tactics: empty praise dressed up as loyalty, fake opportunities laced with manipulation, cheap gifts wrapped in expectation. And when none of it moved you, they panicked. Because if they can't buy your presence, they can't control your direction. And when they can't control you, they fear you. You're not motivated by shallow approval. You're not here for applause, trophies, or fake alliances. You don't bend for status. You don't smile for the spotlight. Your power terrifies them because it's self-sourced. You're rooted, grounded, dangerous in your detachment. And in their world, that makes you unpredictable. And that makes you unstoppable. See, you operate from principle, not profit, from alignment, not applause. While they're out here selling pieces of their soul for validation, you protect your essence like a vault. You've rejected the game completely. And that's exactly why you're winning. It's not that you're above anyone, it's that you're beyond reach. The usual tactics fall flat. The manipulation doesn't land. The temptation doesn't stick. They call you cold, hard to reach, difficult to impress. But that's only because they've never met someone who actually means it when they say, "I'm not for sale." Your silence scares them. Your standards insult them. Your refusal to play leaves them confused, fumbling with a currency that holds no power over you. And that, chosen one, is why they talk. That's why word on the street is you're not as soft and sweet as they thought. Because they expected someone they could shape, someone who'd fold. But instead, they met someone who holds their ground like stone and walks away like the wind. You're not just rare, you're untouchable. And that's the truth they never saw coming. When you can't be bought, you become a mirror to everything they've compromised for. Your silence becomes power, your distance becomes respect, and your refusal becomes a revolution. You're not hard to reach. You're just not made for manipulation. So if this message hit home, it's because you're one of the few who get it. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated because you couldn't be controlled. Stick around, because the next truth is even harder to swallow for those still playing the game.